Hello students, how are you all? I hope you all are doing very well. As you can see, I'm here again with our next literature topic, which is a lesson called Changing a Name by Jampa Lahiri. Now let's know a little bit about the author. Now, Nilanjana Sudeshna, also called as Jampa Lahiri, was born in London and she was brought up in South Kingstown, Rhode Island, London. Now, her stories are mainly called realistic because they reflected the immigrant experience without any kind of discrimination or bias. And she also provided a brilliant insider's account that was sharp, precise, and heartbreaking because she herself was an Indian American who immigrated to America. Now her education started when she graduated from South Kingstown High School and later received her bachelor's in English literature from Vernon College. Then she did multiple degrees from Boston University, a master's in English, master's in creative writing, in comparative literature, and ultimately she did a PhD in Renaissance. She taught creative writing at Boston University and Rhode Island School of Design, and most of her writing involves around the lives of Indian Americans and particularly Bengalis. She has won many awards, including Pulitzer Awards for her fictional debut novel Interpreter of Maladies, and some of her other books are like these: Unaccustomed Earth, The Namesake, which was later made into a movie directed by Meera Nair, and Interpreter of Maladies was her first novel, and The Lowland. Now, a little bit about the story, rather the novel Namesake. Now, this story is an excerpt from the novel Namesake, in which the main themes are immigrant experience, the clash of cultures, conflicts of assimilation, and the ties between the two generations. And Lahiri has done with such perfect detail, and her deft touch has made these fleeting moments, and she opens a whole world of emotions in us when we read the whole novel. Now, this story is about a Ganguly family from the tradition-bound life in Calcutta, and then how they are transformed into Americans. Now, on the heels of arranged marriage, Ashok and Anshima Ganguly, they settle in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and engineer by training, Ashok adapts quite easily as compared to her wife. She still pines for her family. She still misses her family. When their son Gogol is born, so Ashok named him after Russian writer. And now Gogol, he suffers not only from the burden of the heritage, those old traditions that he still has to follow being in America, but of his unusual, odd, antique name also. So Lahiri brings great empathy to Gogol, strewn with conflicting loyalties. With penetrating insight, she reveals not only the defining power of the names and the expectations bestowed upon us by our parents by naming us on a particular person or their ideal or whatever, and but also the means by which we slowly, sometimes painfully, come to define ourselves, that oh, I have to live up to that name. So main two the characters. Now we come to characters. The two main characters are Gogul, Nikhil Ganguly, the child who's around this art chapter revolves, and even the novel Namesake also revolves around him. It is a journey of this child from his childhood to his young adulthood. Now, Gogul, his unusual name was chosen by his father because they have to give a name in the hospital before they could get a discharge when the child was born. So the name Gogol was given to him. Why? Because Ashok adored Nikolai Gogol, a Russian novelist. Why? Now, why he came upon that name? Because Ashok, once he was traveling through train and he met a very bad the train met with a traumatic accident. He had to go through that, but at that time he was reading Gogol's book Death Souls. So even Gogol asks his father once, "Kyo, do I remind you of death?" Then he says, "No, no, you remind me of hope, of joy, and of life." Now we come to Ashok Ganguly. Now Ashok is quite sensitive, loving man. He is devoted to his wife, and in the novel, if you read, we come to know that he has two children. Now he is a man of duty because he really works hard. He knows his duty, that he has to support his family, and he is a brave, I would say, man who takes challenges. Like he chooses to do his PhD in America, so far away from his ancient ancestral town of Calcutta. He moves into a not only new city, new country altogether. And his life takes a turn when he met a train accident which nearly killed him. And he was reading the book of his favorite writer, Nikolai's. And then that's why how he named his child on his Gogol. All right, he is a man of few words, but then he is a great man, and he is a dreamer also. Now we come to the summary. Now summary, to be honest, if we come to the chapter that we are supposed to do, it's just nothing. It's just a small thing that a child named Gogol is going to start his preschool. He goes to the school and meets the principal. But then main theme is he's embarrassed by the name that is given to him and the traditions that he has to follow. But then his mother Ashima, who is also an Indian American immigrant, and she's married to her father Ashok, and Gogol is their first child. Now, in not only in Calcutta, even in India, we have a tradition that elder of the family or one person chosen by the family gives the child a nickname. Now, before anybody could suggest their child a name, they only decided, Ashim and Ashok, that we will name him Gogol. As I told you already, that he was so impressed by Nikolai Gogol, a Russian novelist. So he named his child Gogol. And now, when he went to the school, his father wanted him to tell his name as Nikhil. But when the principal of the school learns that Gogol dislikes his new name Nikhil but prefers his nickname Gogol, she refuses to allow him to use any other name. Now, this last paragraph is about the story which happens in the novel. I just wanted to tell you about that. That now the name issue is solved. So he grows up, Gogol grows up, and he is still embarrassed by his sharing his namesake because it matches to an unusual character in history. So he decides that he will change his name when he will turn 18, so that he is more Americanized and he's just like his American friends and he doesn't feel out, like odd one out kinds. But then in the end there are so many things that happen, and then he feels guilty at the end for not appreciating the gift from his father, who had given him this special Indian nickname, which is also derived from one of their family's ancestral names called Nikhil. So Gogol still remains his main name and Nikhil becomes his nickname. All right. So when I was going through this, I thought ki in India, actually in our country, we give lot of importance to a name when the child is born. A whole new ceremony called name Karan is kept for the child. I would say this is the very first ceremony that a child is kept for a child. So a child's names is basically a connection to our ancient heritage, and our sages, they used to select names which used to sound pleasant also, and they used to have an auspicious meaning also, and normally they used to be based on our gods and goddesses. So they reinforce the significance of the ceremony that was involved called Namkaran or Namkaran. Now, in everyday life, a name helps identify an individual and his cultural and religious identity as well. I'm talking about our country. Now, the Vedic heritage is our most valuable asset, and our name is the most prominent marker of our identification with that heritage. So, do you know the original significance of your name? I would suggest ask your parents who named you. How many nicknames are given to you by your family? Have you ever thought of changing your name? Ask your grandparents and parents if they are happy with their names. Enough to think about. So that's all for today. So I would suggest let's try to work towards making our names really significant, even if they don't mean that significantly. All right. So how can we do that? By working diligently, following an honest life, being helpful and kind. All right. So we can also shine like the shiniest stars in the sky. So till we meet, stay safe. Bye bye.